right, it's the Chiefs and Raiders on Sunday afternoon. Two teams that took care of business last week. The Chiefs over the Jags and the Raiders over the Broncos. And right now to break down this matchup, we welcome NFL Network's James Palmer. James, both these teams have to feel good about how they started their seasons off, but both teams also dealing with injuries. The Chiefs with Tyreek Hill and the Raiders with Gary and Conley. I know he was limited at practice, but was carried off on that stretcher. It looked very scary. And then obviously the news with Jonathan Abram being out for the year. Just what do you like overall about this matchup?
Yeah, I think, really, BJ, the biggest thing that jumps out at me is the way the Raiders played first. I think the way the Chiefs offense played was kind of par for the course of what we've seen with Patrick Mahomes leading it. But the way the Raiders went out there and played against a defense that a lot of people thought, with Vic Fangio now running it, would be even better than we've seen as a defense that has a great reputation. And then the Raiders going out and playing the way they played. I think the Raiders were the surprise, and I think that's why people might be intrigued by this game because of the difference we saw in the Raiders week one compared to the way they played last year under Gruden.
Yeah, and I think they were playing inspired football because everybody knows what was going on with the Antonio Brown situation. And then for that offense to get the ball, go down and score quickly, and then the first play, that little reverse or end around with Noah Fant for the negative play, the crowd was into it. Everybody was excited about that game. What are the matchups that you're most looking forward to in this game?
Yeah, first one I would say is really the Raiders offense on third down versus Chiefs defense on third down. I'll get kind of specific in a sense because the Raiders go 10 of 14 on third down against this Broncos defense. And the reason that sticks out to me is if you keep Patrick Mahomes off the field and you keep drives alive, that's a big part of what probably Oakland wants to be able to do. Now, can the Chiefs go out and get them off the field? And another aspect of that is can they stop Josh Jacobs running the football, which also in turn eats up some of the clock. So the point of this is on third down, can they get Derek Carr and company off the field? Can they limit the length of these drives that the Raiders have? And obviously they want to keep Mahomes off the field. Can they get Carr off the field quick enough after we saw week one how efficient they were in keeping the football? That's one big matchup to me that stands out because if Mahomes isn't on the field, it's a little tough to score some points.
Yeah, when Mahomes is out there, just how do you see this playing out without Jonathan Abram? We don't know the situation with Gary and Conley yet, but the Raiders do have some new guys up front. We saw them make some plays. Cleveland Farrell, their rookie top pick, had a sack in that game against the Broncos, and then obviously Benson Mawai had a couple of sacks after Jawan James went out of that game early. But how do you see the Raiders defense trying to at least slow down Mahomes in this offense?
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing. And I don't want to give away my other matchup points out of this, but that's kind of touching on one of them is kind of how this secondary is going to bounce back. It's a beat-up group. You mentioned Conley comes back to practice, but if he's limited in any sense, how does that affect what they do back there? And Abram was kind of that guy that they wanted to be playing downhill. You see this defense playing a lot faster than they played last year. Now you have one less guy to cover in Tyreek Hill, but you still have a lot of weapons you got to account for. So I think it's going to really fall in the secondary of really any group on how they're going to react to all these different weapons that Patrick Mahomes has. It's going to fall on them, majority of it, and obviously they're beat up, but you can only play that inspired football. Really, if you talk to guys around the league, they'll say that can get you through a week, maybe get you through 2 weeks, but eventually everybody starts playing the way we know that they can play. Maybe that inspired football with losing AB and everything they've been through bleeds into week two to help them out, but I think they're going to need something like that to help out this group.
Yeah, we know Andy Reid has had a lot of success against this division, 10-2 against the Raiders in his career with the Chiefs, and they've won 21 of their last 23 overall against the AFC West. James, you have one more key matchup for us to watch on Sunday with Chiefs and Raiders?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's Chiefs versus their injuries, and I mean that by can Patrick Mahomes play through this ankle that watching him leave the stadium in Jacksonville, he was really struggling to get out of there. And you saw, and we get all these advanced stats sent to us at the NFL about, airtime of these passes after the injury, way shorter than they were before the injury. And he even admitted that he was unable to kind of get out of some of the things that he wanted to get out of with using that mobility and that escapability. Can he win from the pocket with that injury? And also, can he get through the game healthy, because ankle sprains are things that can linger for weeks. So I think against that injury specifically, and then obviously the injury to Tyreek Hill, can they overcome that and use Sammy Watkins in the manner they have? Do you see a more usage out of LaShawn McCoy? And do you see Travis Kelce another step? Getting chances with other guys other than Tyreek Hill with Patrick Mahomes on the field, because he's only played one game without Hill in his career, and that was that first game 2 seasons ago in Denver when Hill was resting. So I think, can they overcome the injuries? How they look overcoming those injuries might tell us a little bit about how the next few weeks will play out.
James, those are great points. And right now I want to transition and ask, who's the most important player in this game for either team that nobody is talking about right now?
I'll say it's Colton Miller. And we talked about some of the first-round picks earlier that they had this year, but how about their first-round pick 2 years ago that had a dreadful season at left tackle, just really, really poor, and goes out, and you didn't hear, and I'll throw both tackles' names out there, you didn't hear Von Miller's name or Bradley Chubb's name in that entire game. Derek Carr, I'm not sure if he showered after the game. He wasn't hit. He wasn't sacked. He probably just went straight home because of the way Miller has improved his body, improved his technique this offseason. That's the side that's going to be going against Frank Clark. And I think, if you talk to Frank, he'll probably say they had their third string left tackle for Jacksonville out there. And he didn't make the impact probably that he had to pick, but the impact they probably wanted to make in the backfield. You got a motivated Frank Clark against a guy in Colton Miller that not a lot of people are talking about, that left tackle spot for the Raiders.
Yeah, and the Chiefs fans that went back and watched all the Frank Clark highlights from last season saw a lot of his highlights when the Seahawks played against the Raiders last year, a lot of going up against Colton Miller. So that's going to be a great matchup.
Different player.
On the other side, the Chiefs, I think the offensive line, because of how they were challenged, and Andy Reid's talked about it this week, I think that they're going to take it personally that they not got called out by Coach Reid, but they were mentioned by Coach Reid as they have to do a better job of protecting Mahomes. And we know that Jags front is not something that they're necessarily going to face every single Sunday, although the Raiders front is much improved. I want you to finish this sentence for me. If the Chiefs win on Sunday against the Raiders, it's because
Patrick Mahomes has figured out how to play through injury and play the position in the pocket without having that luxury of being able to move around. If he can do that, the Chiefs are probably, this might not even be close.
All right. Put you on the spot. Last question. What is your prediction for Sunday's game?
I'm going to say 31-24 Chiefs, but the game's not as close as that score I gave out. If maybe the Raiders get something late, maybe a late touchdown in the closing minutes, but I'm going to say 31-24 Chiefs.
Like the sound of that. James, we appreciate your time, and thank you. We will see you next week. I believe you're going to be in Kansas City next week.
Oh, I got it, baby. And I've spent some time with Lamar Miller and Lamar Jackson in camp. Ooh, I'm excited for that one. I'm excited to get that one in week 3.
That home opener is going to be fun. Hopefully the Chiefs are 2-0 going into that one, at least from our point of view. James, we appreciate your time.
No problem, buddy.